United Healthcare nurse Crystal checked in on a patient.
We do a routine call after surgery, and I could tell in her voice that she was struggling.
Crystal knew she needed help.
And I knew that this is very serious. This is like septic. This is life-threatening.
And she knew just what to do.
And I called the hospital and said, she's coming in. Here are her labs.
And got her the help she needed.
I see my role at United Healthcare as a life-saving role.
Hear more stories like Crystal's at uhc.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan area. Limitation and exclusions apply.
A quick heads up before we start the show, there is some adult language in this episode. Okay, here we go. About a week ago, a bunch of our colleagues were chatting over Slack about a women-only dating app called T. It's an app that I had never heard of.
T is kind of the inevitable landing point for something that's been happening on the internet for a while, which is, call-out culture.
That's Kate Lindsay, who co-hosts ICYMI, Slate's podcast about internet culture. She also writes the newsletter Embedded. I asked Kate to come in and explain T to me, and why women, and in this case we're talking about straight women, would use it.
It's really started as a way for women to be like, okay, I think this guy is good, I like where it's going, but either through personal experience or seeing it happen anecdotally, they want to just make sure that before they, go all in on this guy, that there's no one who has had experiences with him, knows of any, quote unquote, red flags.
Some version of this has popped up on the internet over and over again. Facebook groups have, "Are we dating the same guy?" Thousands of TikTok videos follow cheater trackers. The website don'tdateHimGirl.com has existed since 2005 and even been featured on the Today Show. But T's version of Yelp for boyfriends is an app.
You can post a guy, and it basically kind of functions like Reddit, where it's like the guy, and then underneath everyone just leaves all their comments. And they can either, rather than upvoting and downvoting, they can assign green flag, red flag. And so the point is to keep women safe, or is to kind of elevate that whisper network into one place with everything you could possibly need, because you can also do background checks. You can check if their photo is a catfish. It's just a centralized version of something that I think people dating do in a more sporadic, scattered way, but now all in one app.
T also said it took a series of steps to verify that its women users were safe and secure.
You don't just sign up and get in. A lot of people were put on a wait list. And then once you're on the wait list, you'll hear from them at some point, and they're like, hey, we need a selfie or an ID or your social media profiles. And so you would hand over a scan of your driver's license and a picture of yourself, and maybe your Instagram. And they would look at that and they would be like, I guess checks out. And then you're allowed to be in. And then what they said in their privacy policy was that the images, the selfies, were deleted after they were verified.
Except, and you probably know where this is going, T got hacked. And all that personal information spilled onto some of the worst places on the internet. Posted in many cases by men who were angry that T even existed.
Basically, 72,000 of those selfies and images and documents were discovered and then posted on 4chan. They were posted on Twitter. People looked at the metadata for the photos and created a map of who the women were. They created a website where they put all the selfies and wanted you could, rate the women. But it was done, from what I've seen, fairly easily.
After the incident, the company said all the leaked data was from before February of 2024. But then on Monday, it added that the breach was bigger than they initially thought and included users' direct messages. In writing and thinking about T, Kate argues that it was likely doomed from the start.
When we scale stuff like this, it's really hard to contain it and keep it measured. And you just risk opening the can of worms and then not being able to put it. You don't know where it's going to go once you open it to such a large amount of people. And I also was really turned off by one particular aspect of it, which is even if you don't see the guy that you're dating or thinking about dating in there, you can set up an alert for his name, which I think sets up a really antagonistic relationship between you and your potential partner. If there's something, if it's always in the back of your mind that you're gonna learn something horrible about them, and you'll learn about it via push notification. And it's a very glass half empty to have an alert for your partner on, which kind of suggests you think it's inevitable that at some point you will learn something about them. And I think that leads to a word that everyone's using right now, which is like heterofatalism. Like, it's not even worth it to date.
Today on the show, the rise and fall of T, the digital whisper network that exposed what its users were saying. I'm Lizzie O'Leary, and you're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
I want to back up a little bit and examine the roots of an app like T and why something like this exists in the first place. Mm-hmm. Why would a woman go on T?
You know, I think, and this is something that Magdalene Taylor, writer on Substack, really said eloquently, and I'm gonna do my best to kind of channel her words here, which is there's a real shift in how we view dating, a little bit what I was saying, and what it really comes down to is dating is about embarrassment right now because it feels very public, and it's about wanting to avoid embarrassment. So a woman goes to T because she wants to avoid the embarrassment of learning that the guy she was like being vulnerable with is actually, you know, texting a bunch of other women. Like, and that then men, on the other hand, operate in dating in fear that they'll be embarrassed by appearing on one of these apps. That changes how you interact with each other. It changes what it is you see as a successful relationship. But obviously, in the case of women going on it, they've lived it. Like this app doesn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's really it's both hurtful to experience something like this, and I think it's scary to witness the way that social media in particular can elevate these stories happening all over. And so it's like a genuine fear of being, and you know, it's not just ghosting. Obviously, like the red flags go all the way up to things like sexual assault, which is also a valid thing to want to make sure you're not at risk of. And that is kind of how these whisper networks started.
One issue is the branding. It's one thing to say you're making an app for women to date safely online, but it's another to brand it as a place for gossip, you know, tea about men.
It's like, oh, what's the goss? What's the, like, is he toxic? Is he like all this stuff that encourages a different type of conversation that can include, obviously, stay away, I know these things about this man, or like one thing. So I am similarly married and did not go on this app, but Magdalene had gone on it before it blew up, and like the red flags will be like looks gay or like sus vibes, like it's just Yikes. It's too broad, and I think by making it, you know, all the they like on the website, it's like, this is for the FBI girlies. Like they're using like TikTok language, like it's very, very informal for something that could contain something really serious, and is capitalizing off like a very real fear.
You seem to be talking about a flattening of a kind of surveillance culture that is both an incorporation of the kind of whisper networks that women have used for a long time. Don't go out for drinks alone with this guy, with the embarrassment factor that you hit on of, oh, you do something to me and I'm going to put you on blast to everyone who I have any type of online connection with. And that is a really potent combination, but clearly based on its popularity, a lot of people wanted this, or at least wanted to experiment with it. What does the popularity tell you?
I'll do the positives. I think community is a really big thing. And I think there's a kind of thrilling freedom that comes with this idea of, okay, now all the boys are gone, we can actually talk. Like that is all understandable. But I think the internet especially is very morality and shame motivated right now. You think of like the astronomer CEO.
Yeah.
Something that
the Coldplay cheating scandal for those of you who are not as deep in this world as we are.
Right. Something like that. The moment itself was very like funny to watch, but there is a particular, I guess, 2025-ness to the way that they were then identified, found, harassed, the way that the astronomer company itself made a follow-up video about it using Gwyneth Paltrow to like kind of carry on the meme. There's this way of kind of passing shame around. The women feel a sense of shame if they've been duped, and so something like tea or putting them on blast online puts the shame on the men. It's all motivated by like ethics and morality and like who is being a good person, and I think that's really hard to definitively do in an internet with so many people in it, but also that sometimes things are not black and white. Like in the case of tea, sometimes a man can be on there, but that doesn't mean he's, actually he's dangerous.
We have seen this over and over again. Remember West Elm Caleb? A few years ago, a 20-something guy named Caleb, who designed furniture for West Elm, turned out to be dating multiple women at the same time and ghosting them. He became the center of a kind of digital hunt as more and more women on TikTok talked about his shabby dating behavior online. Then his personal information got blasted across the internet. Wash, rinse, repeat.
I think that is what a lot of entertainment online looks like right now. And there is an element of like something goes viral because we are shaming someone, or something goes viral because they are like calling out us. It's like a little bit of that call out culture thing. And I think the thing with an app like Tea is it incentivizes it. Especially if you are drawn to that sense of community. To participate in Tea, you need to have something to say about a man. And that, I think, is why you can get like really minor infractions like looks gay, which is not an infraction at all. It's like completely homophobic, but it's just like you want to participate. You want to be in this. But I think the only option it's given you for participating is looking at a profile of a man and making a judgment on it. And so I think then that's going to pull at the thing we're already really fluent in online, which is like calling out conspiracies and trying to determine if someone is a good person or not.
Even before the hack, T did not seem hugely secure. Here's this guy on TikTok who found his own page.
So it says I have 27 red flags. I don't agree with that. I don't think I have 27. And I have 8 green flags, so we're off to a very good start. All right? Great, kind person. Real green flag. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. You guys really think so. Okay, he's known on TikTok he messaged me and my friend to hang out at the same time. He talks to multiple girls. We've been caught, gentlemen.
Then, after the breach, it got nastier.
It was basically a bunch of feminists, like just complaining about men all day, and then they get completely hacked by a team of hackers. And it comes out like this is what the people look like. There's not a single people are saying there's not a single attractive person on here. I'm not saying this because I have a beautiful girlfriend. I'm not saying that. I'm not.
And that, I think that is what makes the lack of security kind of like so flabbergasting, because it was founded by a man who said he witnessed his mother on dating apps and horrible dating experiences and was like, oh, I want I want to fix this for women. And I think I mean, the question I ask at the end of my embedded piece is like, I don't know if you were cruel or dumb doing this. There are people who are a little bit more conspiratorial who are like, was this the point? Like, it was so badly protected, and it should have been so expected that it was going to elicit this kind of reaction that it's hard to believe it was so easy for an app that's all about protecting women. I don't think it's that. I do think it's that, like, whisper networks have power because it is like a shared, like, it's within the community. It's not, there's no paper trail. It's a shared understanding amongst women often. But by logging onto T, you create a hierarchy in the sense that that app is now in control of the whisper network. And I think you have to, rather than trusting in each other and the kind of like collective action, you're trusting that this guy who founded it is going to be cognizant of all the potential risks of it. And this is like the worst case scenario of that, which it just seems like they did not think about how this was going to make a corner of the internet feel, and to not have an awareness that there is this very misogynistic, violent corner of the internet that, particularly with stuff like this, is activated. I just think is like, you were the wrong person to do this if this is a surprise to you.
When we come back, can women ever have a safe space online? Or does the nature of the internet make that impossible?
Ford Blue Cruise hands-free highway driving takes the work out of being behind the wheel, allowing you to relax and reconnect, while also staying in control. Enjoy the drive in Blue Cruise-enabled vehicles like the F-150, Explorer, and Mustang Mach-E. Available feature on equipped vehicles. Terms apply. Does not replace safe driving. See Ford.com/BlueCruise for more details.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I think this is the right moment to talk about the shitty media men spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So for people who did not work in the media in 2017, I think the best way to describe it was initially an anonymous spreadsheet that was circulated among women who worked in all sorts of different corners of the media, where a man would end up on the spreadsheet. This is all heteronormative, and various behaviors were listed. You could edit it anonymously. It came to me. I know it came to you. And it really was everything from multiple reports of sexual assault to was mean.
Right. There's one I remember that was like not even, it was like not sexual, but, and then it was just kind of like, seems to be.
There were men on there who did not date women. And it was just sort of like, this person is a jerk.
Yes. Yeah. And again, like then it doesn't, at a certain point, like even though that distinction is made in the doc, that one, the doc was not open to everyone. At a certain point, like now with the years that have gone by, you're just remembered as being on it. It's up to whoever hears that information to decide what you might have done to warrant it, or what the severity is, how true it is. Because I think that's what's been complicated about the shitty media men list. And I think why I'm just like initially skeptical of this. And with time that is passed, this was an unvetted, open source in terms of the Whisper Network community. Like I could have gone and then edited it, put whatever I wanted.
The spreadsheet.
Yes, the spreadsheet. You want to believe that everyone is acting in good faith. And I do think they were, but that doesn't mean, there's been stuff that's come out since of like, Gia Tolentino wrote a piece in the New Yorker about how someone she knew was on it. And the accusation didn't make sense in a way that she theorized. It looked like it was meant to be in a different like cell on the spreadsheet for a different person and ended up on the other. And we don't, and so it's like a totally like it was chaotic. I don't know if anyone's ever been in a Google Doc where like multiple people are, but you're just like writing over each other. And so like there's room for error in that. There's someone who wrote an account on Medium who was on it and was like, to this day, I don't know what I did because it's anonymous and I understand the anonymity. But in terms of like moving forward, this person has been unable to figure out or talk to anyone who in real life who at least is open to telling him what the infraction was. Because of that really is like, I don't know how to move on from this. I don't know how to atone. I don't know. And I think it's really hard because this came around in Me Too during a time when it was revealed how many women weren't listened to. It's really, really hard, and it's uncomfortable for me even talking about it now to suggest in any way that there might be errors or ill intent with anything on there. Right. But it's not. But I think the issue is we don't know.
So this goes back to something that you wrote about T in thinking about these larger questions, which is essentially who mediates these things. And you said the same way we can't trust tech companies to innovate away loneliness, we can't trust them to innovate safety either. And to me, that actually becomes a question of both data security and what is incentivized when a company is trying to make money.
Yeah.
In the way that somebody uses an app for a service, right? And so I guess I put that back to you. Why can't we trust companies to innovate for safety? Because again and again, whether it's dating or protecting kids or talking about, images of disordered eating, companies seem to blow it.
Yeah. I think there's two reasons. I likened it to trying to innovate loneliness when they're like, oh, here's your like AI friend you can wear, where it's like, that's a problem you actually created. The fact that we're not like in community IRL with each other anymore. And so I don't trust you to fix it. And that's a little bit what's happening here, where it's like, if T is sort of the emblematic of where we are now with dating, the precursor is dating apps, which is like the problem we have before dating apps is like, oh, it's hard to meet people. And then dating apps are like, all right, let's fix it. And then it's like, okay, I have tons of people here, but I'm having a really bad time with all of them. And then T is like, okay, we'll fix that. Apps are so designed and motivated to get rid of all friction. And it's just another instance of like, sometimes friction is necessary. Sometimes the weeding out is happening for you by who is in your community. But then there's the side of things of like, yeah, tech companies, like as things operate now, they have to scale. And T just happened to like immediately step on a rake with what was happening here. But I do think there were, in order for it to grow, it was going to need to keep getting women on the app. And in order for women to keep joining the app, they would need to continue having bad experiences with men. And so I think like it's the same issue with dating apps where it's like, if you find a happy relationship, you delete the app and that is bad for the app. And it's like similar here where it's like, okay, if you get yourself in a good place with dating or men, you don't have use for the app and that is not appealing to them. They want you on there. They want more women on there. And so to try and grow and have that be what needs to happen, I find suspect. But then it's like other things, like another way they can make money is advertising, which they would do because they have all your data, which they might not say they're doing anything with it now, but they also said that they deleted all selfies after they were verified. In the case of the 13,000 selfies that were released, that wasn't the case. And so most apps come in to help people, but for the most part, helping people is pretty antithetical to capitalism.
Do you think there is a world in which an app like T, or with the goal maybe of creating a safe space and some type of online whisper network, like, is that even possible?
I think it's hard. I think community has to be bottom up. And I think a lot of these are top down. And because, I think about even like The Wing, which was a co-working space across like cities in the US just for women that faced a lot of issues, because then it was like, well, who is it? Cis women, or is trans women? Is it sexist to not allow men? Like, is that discriminatory in a way that's illegal? One person is in charge of answering a lot of like tough questions. And I think that's something that T would have run in here too with, the quote unquote verifying women. It's like, what does that mean? But I think it also, because it's top down, it doesn't feel like it's top down and they're deciding who gets to be let in. And that doesn't actually feel like a whisper network or like a community or like a union in any way. I think whisper networks work because we're all reaching out to each other. And so I want to say, if that is the approach, they can work online. But I also think no matter what you're doing online, you are ceding control of it to the platform you were on to do it. Like, let's say it's happening in a Facebook group, which is like, are we dating the same guy? You're trusting Mark Zuckerberg to keep that data on lock. Or even on like the shitty media men list was on Google Sheets. That was a whisper network of women. There wasn't necessarily one person in charge, but the protection of it was kind of, if we rule out that any woman would share it, was just down to the security of that Google Sheet. There's a paper trail, there's receipts, everything online is so discoverable. And I think why whisper networks, as they were originally intended, work is because
it's a whisper.
Yeah, it's a whisper, and it's a shared understanding, and it's not tangible. And it's based in like mutual respect for each other. And no one is there trying to gamify it or scale it or make money off of it in any way.
Kate Lindsay, thank you so much for coming in and talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
Kate Lindsay is the host of Slate's ICYMI podcast, and she also writes the newsletter Embedded. You should check them both out. All right, that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell, Patrick Fort, and Shayna Roth. Our show is edited by Paige Osborne. Mia Lobel is the executive producer here at Slate, and TBD is part of the larger What Next family. And if you're looking for more Slate shows to binge, check out Thursday's episode of What Next. It's all about how NASA, once the pinnacle of space exploration, ceded control to Elon Musk's SpaceX. We'll be back on Sunday with an episode about the Trump administration's big AI project, Stargate, that might be floundering right out of the gate. I'm Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks so much for listening.